right, good afternoon, everybody. Just sitting close to you and high five to the person who's sitting close to you today. All right, so you're all welcome. Thank you for the time you've spent. I want to say a very big thank you to the organizers. I'm just going to speak for maybe 15 minutes. I believe it's going to be worth your time. All right, so my name is Barry, and I remember before going into junior secondary school, my dad was duped by 419 then, so it was hard for me to go to school. So I had to sit in the house for just one first term, and I live in an estate. So the mindset I had about those who stays in estates is those who go to public schools are usually the house help, right? But there I was, done with primary school. I needed to further, but there was no money to go. So as a young guy, the only option I had was to work. And in the estate where I was staying, we had event planners. We usually prepare events for kids during their parties and the rest. So I started wearing Barney. How many of you remember Barney? So when you watch Disney, you see some very fat-looking Barney, but imagine a young guy of maybe 12 years putting on that costume. So that was a dwarf or a, kind of suffering Barney. But I did that for a couple of months, and I was able to save about 3,500. The only school 3,500 could take me to is a school called Ogborikoko Secondary School. Come on, celebrate grace. Put your hands together for Ogborikoko Secondary School. So I went to Ogborikoko Secondary School, and I was there for GS1, GS2, GS3, XS1. While I was in that school, because of the mindset I had, right, that those who go to public schools are not supposed to be intelligent, they are supposed to be like, then in public schools, people fight. You go to school with cutlass, you go to school with daggers. It was that terrible, right? So I made up my mind I wasn't going to be a serious student. So because of the decision I've made, someone spoke about choices, Pastor Vera. So because of the decision I've made, when it was time for test, right, I still had to write test. When it was time for test, intelligent students in public schools or in schools generally usually like sitting at the front. So I'll just target when it's close to break period, and then I'll steal notes of those sitting at the front. Old things have passed away, old things are new, right? All right, so what happened was, there's a way you are dull, you do expo and still fail. You can relate, of course. Hope you are not like that, or were like that, right? So I'll steal the notes. Something happened, I got my results for a particular term, and my result was bloody. You know when we say your result is bloody? Slaughter cow, ants were killed, and all that. Inside your result, so it was F, many F, red. So I decided I was going to be smart as a sharp worry boy. So I got, I think, 29 over 100. Can you imagine? So what I did, Jesus Christ. After I got the slip, I said, my dad usually doesn't check my results. So I was like, but this particular term, he requested for the report card. So I just gave an excuse. I said I was going to do some surgery. So I changed my first test that was supposed to be 7. That was supposed to be theory. I think I changed it to 17 over 20. Then I changed the one that was theory to 7. So at the end of the day, the 27 turns to 77, right? So my dad decided he was going to look properly into the results, and he saw the lines. It wasn't adding up. And then at that point, he literally just gave up on me that do anything you want to do. And I was so excited. So sometimes I would go to school 10 a.m. with my shirt, my pants sleeping. Boy, you know what I'm talking about? All right? Miracle happened in a sense. My uncle that was closest to me. So that sort of made me realize how short life could be. So I made up my mind I was going to give life my best shot, see the results I could get. Because now my dad was going to be responsible for my cousins, and I didn't want to be burdened. And while I was there, I said, I can do something, I can make something out of my life. So but this time around, when I'm paid the 800 or the 500 or 300, instead of buying jeans like my guys were buying, instead of buying clothes or going for parties, I started buying textbooks. So I've already lost the foundation for education. So I thought it would be impossible to learn how to calculate and all that. So I just went straight. I started in government. I said I was going to be reading just 35 minutes every day. So I started studying. Lo and behold, the results came out for SS2 second term. I was the second best student in class. Come on. Then I went to Oleh campus. I did a program in law. We had over 200 persons registered for that program. I graduated with one of the best results, very close to a first class, right? So today, I just finished a training for some of the staff of one of Nigeria's biggest corporation, right? And I was paid in like 6 digits to teach for a couple of days. Yes. So that level of transformation happened. But I want to bring out some very, very important points that was responsible for that, right? And one of them was my mind shifted. And how did my mind shift? My mind shifted because of the words I was exposed to, right? So initially, I had some limiting thoughts that if you're in a public school, you're not supposed to excel. But what I've come to realize is your location is not as important as your disposition. Can I say that again? Your location is not as important as your disposition, right? So I'm in the city of Warri, and just January this year, I got a mail from one of the companies I work with, and I was made like a member of the Faculty of Entrepreneurship in a university, right? I was in Asaba a couple of days back, and I'm trying to do some work for the business school, DESU Business School, right? And the reason is because of one of the things I want to share now. The only limitation in your mindset is as a result of the words you've been exposed to. Can I say that again? The only thing limiting your mindset is as a result of the words you've been exposed to. So poverty is a training, wealth is a training. I'm going to explain. When you give birth to a child, the child doesn't know whether the parents are rich, the child is not aware if the parents are poor. But when the child starts growing up, all of a sudden, maybe the child sees a car and says, "Daddy, a car." Then the father tells the child, "We are what?" Tells the child, "Oh, they are poor people, so we can't have that." So the child grows up with that mindset and eventually becomes poor, right? So while I was in this new school, I went to Oxus Academy. We're giving opportunity for speakers to come talk to us about, being positive, believing in yourself and all that. And I started hearing of stories of people like Nick Vujicic, a guy without arms and legs who attempted to commit suicide at his young age, eventually became one of the greatest public speakers in the world. And then I told myself, if Nick Vujicic can do it, I can do it as well. I heard the famous story of Ben Carson. How many of us know Ben Carson? Everybody does. The first neurosurgeon in the world to separate the jointed twins, right? I realized Ben Carson was an ododo like me, but he changed his life. So I was like, if Ben Carson can do it, Barry Wonder can do it. So I started studying, and that transformation happened, right? So I'm here to tell you that each and every one of us, we have a great future ahead of us. Each and every one of us, we have unlimited possibilities and potentials that we can achieve. But one of the things that can hinder us from getting there is the words we're going to start exposing ourselves to. And I'm so excited seeing you seated here today, coming to hear words that you can use to propel yourself for success and for greatness. I was in a meeting with the Deputy Governor of Delta State, and then he said a word that struck to my heart, and I wrote it in my book. He said, great men are product of great words. Can I say that again? Great men are what? Product of what? Of great words. So you may not be where you aspire to be. You may not be the person you want to be. But if you keep exposing yourself to the set of words that can prepare you to become that person, it's just a matter of time. Inevitably, you're going to become. So before the appointments came for me to be part of the entrepreneurship faculty of the university in Lagos, not in Delta State, December last year, I just started, I changed the kind of content I was consuming. So I started studying more, attending classes on places like Stanford University, online, right? On YouTube, I would watch the videos, see how they were doing their executive education, and then the opportunity came, right? So what you store on the inside of you eventually becomes what comes out, right? So life is lived from the inside out. So it's the information you've consumed that you eventually produce out of you. And if you look at the word information, you realize it's two words. There's in, then there's what? Then there's formation. So every time you expose yourself to an information, you are forming something in you. And one of the verses in Proverbs tells us that as a man thinks in his heart, so is what? So is he. Then the greatest teacher of all time said, a good man out of the good treasures of his heart does what? Brings forth good things. Then an evil man out of the evil treasures of his heart brings forth evil things. So what it means is the outer manifestation or the outer results you're going to see in your life will be based on the content of your heart. So your next 3 years, your next 5 years, your next 10 years is not a mystery. It's going to be the result or the outcome of the content that you've consumed on the inside of you. So my charge to you today is just like a summation of what we've been hearing from the previous speakers. First of all, give attention to what you hear. Fela Duroti said something. He said, what do you give your ear time to? Not your airtime, your ear time, your EAR. What do you give your ear time to? Because what you hear, you believe. And what you believe, you act on. And what you act on becomes a summation and the result of your life. Right? So you give attention to what you expose your ears to. Then the second law in programming your mind for success is give attention to what you see. Give attention to what you see. Your mind can't differentiate between what is real and what is not real. Meditation simply means to become or to make familiar. That's what meditation means. So you can be where you are right now, and you can make yourself familiar with the future you want by creating visuals about it. So in my work decks in my room, I have a term called a greater me. I put 1,000 times greater. So when I see myself, I multiply the me presently by 1,000 times. And amazingly, the opportunities are coming already. You know, I started saying something, right? Or someone said something about me. It was about introducing me to speak. And the person said, this is one of the lights in our city. But you know what I think? I think I'm one of the lights in the world, not just the city. All right? So I started saying something. I'm bigger than this city. 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 I was having like a consulting session with someone. And then I was done speaking for about maybe 15 minutes. And the person paused and asked me a question. Are you from here? And I said, yes. Right? But you can become bigger than your environment. How do you become bigger than your environment? You elevate your mind to be bigger than your environment. You elevate your mind to be bigger than your environment. And the way life works is, where your mind goes, there your life goes. So the reason you're here today wasn't because your skin, your hair, or your eyes wanted to be here. The reason you're here today was because you made up your mind you were going to be here, and here you are seated. So your next 10 years, your next 5 years, your next 3 years, the tail end of your life is going to be based on the decisions you're going to be making with your mind. And then not make a decision based on where you're coming from. Some years back, from one of the speakers I came to speak to us while we were in school, said something. Said, don't let your background put your back on the ground. And I like that. Can I say that again? Don't let your background put your back on the ground. So Jessica said something. She posted it on her status. I saw it. She said, dream big and believe God can fund the dream. So everything is possible. Can you say that? Say everything is possible. I can be anything. I can achieve anything. Right? So this is the second way you program yourself for success. So you are what you are as a result of all the words you've been hearing and all the words you've been saying. Your next level will also going to be as a result of the words you're going to start saying about yourself. The story of creation tells us vividly how in the beginning God had nothing. The world was in disarray. Everything was void. What did he do? He started speaking what he wanted to see. And after a period of time, as he said, so it was. So in the same way, if you will be sincere and you take inventory of your life, you're going to realize all what you have today are the things you've been saying about yourself or the things you'll be hearing about yourself. So where do you want to be in the next 10 years? I started saying just recently I'm worth over $10 million. Right? Because all the things I've been saying before, I've seen them happen. So I'm elevating my financial goal. So it's $10 million. That's what I'm saying about myself. And one of you can choose to maybe just give me $1 million after this talk. Right? Yeah. So you start saying what you want to see. You create visuals about what you want to see. I have books published today. These were things I was saying some years back. These were things I'll do designs and stuff like that. But I was creating those impressions in my mind. And today, all of them, with an exemption of one, is a reality. So I can tell you, this is a short principle. Okay, I think some of you are writing. Can you just lift up your pen? Just lift up your pen. If you let go of the pen, what's going to happen? It's going to fall. Why? Because there's a law called the law of gravity. So cause and effects, law of gravity, all things being equal, the object is going to go down. So these are laws that you can apply, and inevitably, it's going to give you the life you desire. So firstly, I said you should control what you give your mind access to, the information you consume. While I was in Asaba, in the hotel we stayed, we had a TV, but it was never on for the 4 nights we were there. The reason is because I don't watch television. I barely watch television. I have a favorite channel on that's Just Fit Africa. That's what I watch, or maybe CNN, right? So I barely watch television. Why? I'm very conscious of what I expose my mind to. Are you aware that there are some songs you never intentionally sat down to practice, but you were in a public place and the song came up, you just started singing the lyrics, but you never intentionally learned about it? That's what happens to your mind. That's how powerful your mind be. The things you subconsciously expose yourself to, you eventually start saying. And the things you say, eventually you start doing with your life. So the question is, to every one of us here, what do you want to be? I made up my mind I was going to be one of the best management consultants in the world. I don't think city, I don't think nation, I think about the world. Because I was studying some years back, reading very important. I was studying some years back, I saw that I'm a seed of Abraham. So as a seed of Abraham, I've been ordained and destined to be a blessing to all the families and nations of the world. So I think at the age of 19, I wrote down a financial goal for myself. And I said I was going to be worth, I wrote down something, $400 and something million. That was what I wrote down. And the reason I had the guts to do that was because of what I've seen. So I said if I will write a book and just 10% of the people in this world are going to buy that book, the world has over maybe 6 billion people. So if just 10%, which is 600 million, will buy a copy of my book, that would be like $600 million. So I knew I was never going to be poor. So what your mind does for you is your mind can give you that certainty that you're going to be successful. Your mind can give you that certainty that you're going to be great. It happens from within, first of all. It happens from within. If I ask you to stand up now, you're not going to stand up just with your leg. You're going to stand up with your mind. So if we're talking about beacon, the light bulb, first of all, has to be switched on in your mind. When it's switched on in your mind, then your possibilities are limitless. So you must see yourself the way you've been created. You've been created to be a creator. You've been created to be a success. We all use different devices, some Samsung, some iPhone, Techno, whatever you're using. These products have their image inscribed in it. And the producers can't afford their product to fail unless it's going to tarnish their image. So you are not a biological accident. You are rather the handiwork of the creator. So the creator has designed you for success. He has designed you for excellence. He has designed you for greatness. So when you wake up every morning, you have your mind, right? So there are sometimes I wake up, or every time I'm wake up or I'm walking, literally, there's a thought process because your mind is like an engine, right? If the engine is not in a car, no matter how beautiful that car is, it's not going to work. It's not going to move anywhere. So your subconscious mind is like that engine. So there are sometimes I'm literally walking, or I can be talking to you. The thought process in my mind is, you're great. You're a success. So this is how I think. So I can't have anything opposite of my thoughts. Because a man, as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Right? So you must become conscious of your thoughts, first of all. Talking about mind management, you must become conscious of your thoughts. What are your thought processes like? What are your thought processes like? Do you have limiting thoughts? You must become conscious of what you think about. Joyce Meyer said, think about what you're thinking about. Does that make sense? So you think about what you're thinking about. Are you thinking you don't deserve this? Are you thinking you're not equipped for this? So when you have a thought like that, I'm a person of faith, so I'll tell myself my sufficiency is not of myself. God has made me sufficient, right? So when you have those limiting thoughts, immediately you change it. So you can monitor yourself and say, for this 1 week, this is a limiting thought I've observed about myself, and this is what I want to change it with, right? So every time that thought comes, you counter it with another thought. And when the thought keeps persisting, there's a tool that is greater than your mind. The tool that is greater than your mind is your tongue. Does that make sense? There's a tool greater than the mind. The tool that's greater than your mind is your tongue. So when you realize the mind is going in a way it's not supposed to be going, then you use your tongue to bring it back to order. So can you say I'm a success? Say I'm great. Say there's nothing too beautiful for me to have. I deserve the best because I am the best. So I've left you with some principles I believe you can apply. And when you put them to work, inevitably, it's going to make you a success. Thank you. This is my time.